All right, everyone, we're back here on Soak It Up, and this time I'm here, Maria Zepeda, with Jor-el Vaasborg. Hi, Jor-el.
Hello, thanks
So
for having
excited to
me.
have you. Yeah, super
Yeah.
excited to have you on here. And I know you've been featured in one of my episodes already. So, guys, if you haven't seen that episode, go back, watch it. It's Soak It Up with Jor-el Vaasborg at the France USA International Film Festival. So, how was the festival? Just, I know we kind of talked there and we got that interview, but just like, what, like the whole takeaway, that whole experience, how was it?
Oh yeah, it was a blast. I mean, it's always fun being surrounded by other kind of creatives and other artists and people who are all kind of trying to put their stuff out there, and it's cool seeing kind of um all the different stories that people craft, and there were a lot of really good movies, and it was cool that a lot of people showed up. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think the turnout ended up being great and
Hmm.
being able to, yeah, be around a lot of like-minded people who are going after a lot of the same things that you're going after. I feel like it kind of gives you even more of a drive to do it than if it's,
Yeah.
just yourself.
Yeah, no, and yeah, it's always cool seeing someone's art and then meeting the person who created it afterward,
Oh yeah.
right? So because you get a everyone has their own first impression of what something is, what it means, and then you get to talk to the person who created it and kind of understand their perspective on it. Because once you create a piece of art, it's like out there and it's kind of not yours anymore, right? It's in the eyes of the viewer. And so it's always fun seeing people's what people are trying to do initially with a story that they're crafting, and then what it kind of your impression of it at the same time.
Yeah, because once you put it out there, each viewer is gonna view it in their own way and get their own interpretation of it. So actually getting to see the person who made it and see what their interpretation of it was and
Yeah.
what their goal for it was, I feel like that is really cool too. And like for you and for your film and a lot of the other filmmakers that were there that submitted films, that was really cool. Are you going to the next festival? I know it's coming up here in November.
I think I will be in LA at that time, right? It's in LA now, right?
Yeah,
This
it's in
year?
Hollywood. Yeah.
Okay. What's the date?
I believe the 17th and 18th. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure,
All
but yeah,
right.
I
So
believe.
everyone come to LA around the 17th and 18th.
Yes, you guys, it'll be so much fun getting to see all the new films and like we said, getting to actually speak with the people that made the films, the actors, the producers, everyone. It's a really cool experience to actually get to be there with those people. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I should be here then, so I'll be excited to.
yeah, well, I'm hoping to come too. So hopefully we get to see each other again in person, which will be cool.
Yep.
So you've been acting for a little while now. I know I talked a little bit about this before. How long, you said since you were like a young child, been into acting?
Yeah, so my mom got me into acting a little bit because she used to act, and so I started just doing like community theater like a lot of little kids do, who end up wanting to become actors
Yeah.
since I was probably like, it's like six or something. And then over time it just grew into a larger and larger obsession. And then I didn't do anything professionally growing up really. I did one or two little Shakespeare plays that I ended up getting paid for while I was in college. But then I went down to UCLA to study acting. And then after I graduated, then I kind of started working more professionally. So I guess it's now been what? Because I'm 31 now, so it's like about ten years or so.
Of professional acting.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Of auditioning for films and TV and
yeah.
theater and other things, post college. So
Yeah. And we met in active actors class. How long have you been taking that class for?
oh, it's been a couple of years now.
A couple years.
Uh,
I
yeah.
wonder, like, if we started at like I know you were already doing it when I started. I've been going probably like 2 years now.
Okay.
Um,
I probably have about 6 months on you then, I think.
okay.
Not a
Okay. So
whole
you didn't
lot of
start
extra time.
much. Yes.
I don't think so. It's so hard for me to keep track. Like I after 2020, I have like a huge gap, and something could be like 3 years ago and it still feels like the same age as something that's like 2 years ago or something that's like 4 years
Oh,
ago.
I
So
totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I have this big block after 2020. Everything kind of all mushes together, which
It's
so
really funny. I was actually talking to someone about that the other day, how like we measure time like that, like before 2020 or after 2020, and it's so weird that we do that, but it's
totally.
funny. Like we'll be talking about stuff and it'll be like, was it before that or was it after that? Um,
Right. Yeah, they've got, BC and AD. I think they should have another one that should be AC, which is after COVID.
That's literally what we were saying. It's so funny. We were like measuring time and they were like, we're just gonna start telling you, like, was it before COVID or after COVID? We'll just mark it as like
Yep.
BC and AD. That's so funny that you say that because that's literally what we were talking about. But I think it's so funny because it was very unintentional. Like, I don't intentionally mark it off as like, oh, it was before COVID or it was after
Yeah,
COVID. It just happens. I don't know why. But
totally. I think it's a pretty common thought, but like,
yeah.
synchronicity, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a large event, so makes sense.
Totally. I always think that like it's so funny because you become part of these kind of huge moments in history. Well, not like maybe even if you're not directly involved, you're indirectly involved, right? These things like affect you. And I think every 10 to 20 years, there's like a big event. And so
Yeah.
the first big event I remember going through was 9/11,
Hmm.
right? So I
Yeah.
feel like there's like 9/11, then the next one, there might be one in between that and COVID, but I feel like COVID is probably like the next like big
Like
event, at least if you're in the US, you
national,
know?
like yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, very large event, and sometimes you don't even realize it when you're like going through it. Like I don't know, I didn't really. I mean, thinking about it now, it was like a huge event, but it was just life, you know. It was just well, this is happening, but um,
sure.
now when you look at it, it's gonna be like that's a major historical event, so it's crazy.
Yeah,
So you do voiceover acting as well, right?
I do.
So
Yeah,
what?
I've been lucky. I've been lucky enough to do that. I mean, just like acting, I always enjoyed, doing listening to audiobooks and, watching animated shows and like stuff that was dubbed growing up. And I never, in college, I did some like clinic for like a day or two that they had when someone came to our school, and I think it was for voiceover and audiobooks. And I didn't, after doing it, I didn't feel super confident that I was that skilled in it. But so I didn't pursue it any further. And then after I graduated, this is maybe like 5 years after graduating, I think, I ended up running into this amazing um, casting director, and she was kind enough to bring me in for some auditions for some voiceover stuff. And they ended up, I think I auditioned for this one video game and I didn't get cast, but it was like down to me and one other person. And I think the director
Yeah.
had wanted to pick me, but someone else wanted a bigger name or something. Anyway, so I didn't get that. But then later they emailed me and said, "Hey, would you want to dub this Turkish superhero show?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, that'd be great." And they just offered me the part, which was awesome.
Oh,
So that was the first thing I did with them. And then I've done a couple other stuff since then. So the first thing I dubbed was this it's this like Netflix superhero show called The Protector. And so it's a Turkish show, but I dubbed the American voices of one of the recurring characters in the first season. So whose name is Amir. So I did that, and then they brought me in for another Turkish show called Love 101, I think. Then I dubbed this. There's a couple of things that I've done with them, but then the most recent thing I did was I dubbed this Chinese anime show for Netflix that's called Scissor Seven, and it's a really funny, really wild and crazy Chinese anime show about this hair cutting assassin that lives on this island. And
sounds
it's really
interesting.
funny. Yeah, yeah. It's a blast. And I play one of the recurring characters whose name is Springwind Ichiro, or Hirokaze Ichiro in the other language. And he's recurred in a bunch of different seasons, so they've kind of brought me back to play that. And then I've done a couple other smaller voices in each
Okay,
season.
that's cool.
So yeah.
That's really fun. How do you like the voiceover as opposed to like on-screen acting?
They're both really fun. They're both very different. When you're on screen, you're a little bit constrained in terms of the amount that you can do by obviously the camera. So when I've done these voiceover jobs, sometimes we're recording episode after episode in one session. So it's really, really fast paced, and you get to kind of record a lot in a short period of time because obviously budget constraints, right? Whereas with a TV show, they have to move locations, they have to get the
Yeah,
focus right, they have to
I
get the lights right.
definitely can't
Yeah,
get
so
as much done in as short of a time for sure.
totally. So it's very fast paced, but it's a lot of fun, and you get to kind of be very creative. But it's very technical, which is something that I've gotten slowly better at over time. But it's a blast, and you get to kind of be goofy and wild, and you can show up to work in your sweatpants.
That does sound nice. What is like your favorite part of like the voiceover process?
I think it's just, I mean, part of what I enjoy about acting is using your imagination and kind of being creative. And you kind of have to do that when you're doing these voiceover roles because you don't have a whole lot of prep
Mhm.
and you get kind of thrown in and you got to do something and just try it. And you maybe get like one or two more takes to get it right. And then you move on. Right. And so you have to kind of make choices quickly and kind of put
Use your
yourself in these
imagination.
scenarios. Yeah. So I enjoy that.
That's super cool. How do you like seeing yourself like as a cartoon?
It's fine. It's always hard. I feel like the human voice is a little bit well, let me rephrase that. I think some people have a hard time seeing themselves on camera, right? And it takes a little bit of time before you kind of adjust
It takes
to being able to watch yourself.
Mhm.
And I've seen myself on camera a fair amount, and so I've adjusted to that. But then it took me a while to adjust to hearing myself, right?
Mhm.
So when you're just hearing your voice without seeing your face, it's a totally different experience. So I think it took a little bit of an adjustment
Yeah.
for me to listen to my voice and not be critical. Right.
All right. So you're also into photography. You definitely keep yourself busy. So you did my headshots.
Yes.
Thanks so much for that. They turned out great. Um,
Awesome. Yeah, happy to help.
and I know you do some other things like you do like photograph like live shows, stuff like that. How
Mhm.
do you enjoy like photography? That's like a total different kind of thing I feel like than acting is.
Oh, totally. So I think it's kind of funny. So my mom used to act and my dad likes doing photography. So
Okay, we got both.
I kind of picked something from each of them.
Okay, yeah.
Even though I feel like my mom did a lot of theater and I haven't done as much theater, and my dad likes photographing nature and I tend to photograph people. So I feel like I'm kind of in those two lanes, but in a kind of a different way.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things in terms of doing photography, and yeah, I mostly do headshots and portraits for people, and then I'll do event photography and set photography, like
Okay.
BTS or film stills. The thing I one, there's a couple things I enjoy with photography. One is in particular when it comes to doing event photography or especially when I do BTS film still photography, is I get it kind of one, you don't really have a boss, right? Because you can it's your job. Everyone there is there to make the movie happen, and you were there for a completely different reason, which is to capture the what's going on behind the camera and what's going on with the actors and the crew and to capture those moments. So you kind
Yeah.
of don't have a boss. You can kind of walk around and do whatever you want to a certain extent, unless there's certain shots you have to get. So I enjoyed that aspect. Two, being in front of the camera, you get a lot of attention. And when you do BTS photography, it's the exact opposite.
Behind the camera instead.
Exactly. So I get to kind of embrace my inner introvert, which is kind of nice. You get to kind of just sit in the corner and you don't want anyone to see you, and you get to kind of view what's going on. So I think that's fun. It's fun getting to see different sides of a film set that you don't normally get to see as an actor. When you're an actor on a film set, you only see a very narrow slice of what is actually going on. There's so much amazing things that happen into making a movie, and it's so challenging, and there's so many different awesome people who get to work on it. And so it's cool to be able to see the other side of making a movie and then also to be able to kind of capture that because you're watching these kind of highly skilled for the most part, people, doing these very particular jobs and having to do them well in a very quick time span. You're always burning daylight. You always don't have enough time or funding or any of that sort of stuff. So it's always fun kind of capturing that. Now, when it comes to doing portraits and headshots of people, I enjoy when I think this is one of the reasons that I enjoy taking pictures of people is I enjoy capturing like little moments, which you get when you do film stills, but also I feel like when I do headshots of people and portraits, there's always those little moments when people kind of let their guard down and just show you who they are, right? And we all have our own little like defenses up, and especially when you're going to like take someone's headshot, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, I think, for them, unless they've done it a million times. And so it's fun to and we all have this like facade that we put up in front of us, right? And so I think it's fun to get to like look beyond that. So I enjoy capturing these little moments when I'm taking photographs of people. It's almost like, they call it shooting for a reason. It's almost like you've got a gun, right? And you're shooting at a target. And when I get to capture a little moment that comes out intentionally that you kind of discover in the moment that's kind of real and very human, it's almost like I hit the target, right? So you're kind of aiming to hit these little targets that kind of come out
Yeah,
of nowhere.
that's a really fun way to look at it.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And you mentioned, being an introvert and being able to be behind the camera for a little bit. It's really nice. How is it like being an introvert, being an actor? I feel like a lot of people, when they think actor, they think extroverted and, very outgoing, but that's not the case for a lot of actors.
Yeah. I think I am both very extroverted and very introverted. So I wouldn't qualify myself as one or the other. I think I enjoy I enjoy both aspects of my personality. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's fun. Like I enjoy being around people. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy kind of
Yeah.
putting myself in these scenarios, but there's also something nice that comes with just getting to be by yourself or just getting to like, I don't know, take a step back.
Yeah, you have to have like a balance kind of. Yeah,
Totally.
I feel like I'm the same way. It's like, I love meeting people and getting out there, but then sometimes, you want like your introvert time.
Totally. Well, I know you've got siblings, but I'm an only child. So like
Ooh.
I have both I both desperately enjoy being around people and desperately enjoy being by myself, right? At the same time. So
Yeah,
because I need my own space, need my own all that sort of stuff because that's what I was used to growing up. And so again, I have to it's just that balance, like you said, feeding both sides of your
yeah,
personality.
yep. And then another thing I wanted to touch on is you are also in a band,
Yes.
keeping
So
yourself very busy.
I have a million things that I enjoy, and I'm lucky enough to get to do a lot of them. So, playing music is another thing. I have two music projects right now. The first one, which is something I've had for a couple years now, is called Reckless Raven. If you want to find this band or by the way, my photography or any of my sort of stuff on Instagram, my acting handle is just my last name. So at Vaasborg, Vaasborg, and maybe she'll put this in the description or something. My photography is at Vaasborg Photo, and then my band is called Reckless Raven, and it's at Reckless Raven Music, and this is all on Instagram. But so yeah, so I have a two piece, which we've got a couple other musicians that might join us soon, but
Ooh,
yeah,
that'd
so and then I just started a new music project with another friend of mine, which I can't talk about too much yet because we haven't figured out exactly what it is yet. But
be okay. Well, we'll be looking forward to that, and for sure, I'll put your Instagram handle in the um, info down below.
yeah.
Um, So everyone will have that. We'll look up, your photography, your music, all your different interests. You're very,
I enjoy being creative, and especially when you're a performer or an actor, unless you're kind of writing your own projects and kind of making this happen, which I think it's good for anyone to do. But it's nice to have other creative outlets to be able to use and be part of because sometimes when you're an actor, it can feel a little bit like you're just going out, interviewing for work, and then sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't. And then sometimes you don't even get interviews, right? So it's nice to be able to be creative in other ways. So I enjoy being able to do photography, being able to play music, and yeah.
Yeah. Do you write like for your band? Do you write your own stuff?
I write a lot of the songs, but then we also kind of workshop it and practice. So sometimes I'll bring in something that I'm working on. Sometimes we'll just jam out and then we'll find something. Like last week, there was this new song that we were just randomly jamming, and I found this little kind of riff and melody and chord progression that we started on. I'm like, oh, this is actually really good. So I've obviously got my recorder on. So then I take it home, like, oh, I got to work on this more and figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
That's
sometimes that
really,
happens. And then sometimes I'm just, I write a lot in my car when I'm driving places. I'll like hum a melody or some like lyrics come to me. And then I've got my notepad on my iPhone and I'm just writing things down.
yeah. Voice memos comes in handy.
Yes, totally. Voice memos is
Yeah.
the bomb.
Yeah, I use that a ton. Voice memos. I have so many, it's crazy.
I
But
finally started using folders for the very first time, like about a couple months ago.
oh,
I just had them all, and I was like, oh God, this
I
is
did the exact
insane.
same thing. And it was like, it was getting out of hand. I was like, I don't even know how to find what I'm looking for anymore. And I figured out that you can go in there and create separate folders. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I wish I knew
Uh,
that at the beginning. So helpful.
Pro tip, use folders.
Yes. Stay organized. It will help you in the future.
Totally.
Yeah. So, before we wrap up, I think we're just about done on time, but before we wrap up, I'd like to talk a little about one hobby that I know you're super, super into just from following you on Instagram. You like to rock climb. I think you knew where I was going with that.
I knew exactly where you're going that
Yeah.
because my like it's so funny because like on my Instagram it says like actor, photographer, all that sort of stuff, but like 90% of the stuff I post is just me rock climbing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's another thing that I really enjoy doing. And yeah, I grew up around nature and I did a little bit of rock climbing in college. I got into it through a friend of mine, but then I stopped for like 10 years. And then I was actually doing film still photography on this like AFI film shoot. And I ran into someone who also climbed, and I was like, oh, we should go climbing. I haven't done that in years and years. And then I got back into it and then I got obsessed. So usually almost like every weekend, I'm like going somewhere and climbing outside. So
Yeah, getting outdoors. I feel like getting outdoors is so good just for so many things. It kind of helps clear your mind on like
oh yeah,
everything.
totally.
Yeah. So what's
Yeah.
like some of your favorite climbing spots?
Okay, so this is gonna get real nerdy. So, there are a bunch of different places that I've gone. So, one of my absolute, so there's different types of climbing, right? So there's bouldering, there's sport climbing, and there's trad climbing. So bouldering is usually like you're climbing these like boulders that are anywhere between like a couple feet up to like 20 feet tall, right? And so you don't use a rope, but you have a big pad that you try and land on if you take a fall, right? So that's a lot of fun. Then the sport climbing, basically, there are like these longer routes, but basically someone's pre-drilled bolts and hangers into the wall, and so you have a rope, and so as you go up, you clip into each of the hangers that are on the bolts. And so basically, if you fall for any reason, you just fall to the last place you clipped in, right? And you have someone who's belaying you, making sure that you're safe, right? So that's sport climbing, and then trad climbing is kind of the same deal, except instead of someone having bolts and stuff, you have to place all your own protection, which means you have to find little cracks and crevices and places in the wall where you can place like these devices that are called cams or nuts or different types of points of protection. So anyway, that being said, one of my favorite places to go bouldering is up in Bishop, which I'm super excited. I'm gonna go there in a couple weeks for this like climbing festival for a couple days. That's an amazing spot. Close by, there's a lot of amazing, really good sport climbing. There's a place called Echo Cliff. There's a lot of places in Malibu. So in Malibu Creek Park, there's some good sport climbing. In this place called Echo Cliffs, which is just like farther along the coast, there's some good climbing. There's a place called Texas Canyon, which is up in I always forget the name. It's like a little bit northeast. There's another good bouldering spot. Probably the best bouldering spot in Southern California. It's called Tramway, which is in Palm Springs. You take the aerial tramway up to like 8,500 feet, and then there's all these amazing boulders up there, and it's beautiful. Uh, so yeah, that's a good spot. As far as trad climbing, Yosemite is amazing. I'd like to do more climbing there. There's a place called Taquitos, which is also close to Tramway. That's got some good stuff. And then obviously Joshua Tree. So it's a good place for bouldering and trad climbing. So,
Yeah.
and there's more, but that's like, a basic blueprint for, yeah,
A lot of cool spots. I feel like
a lot of cool
I don't
spots.
know. Do you ever get like scared climbing? I'm
Oh yeah.
not the biggest fan of heights, so I don't think that I would do well. But
Totally.
yeah,
I mean, that's part of the fun of climbing, right? Is that there's a little bit of fear involved, right? And
really.
there's yeah, and there are consequences involved if you screw things up, right? So it kind of adds to both the excitement, but it also adds a little bit to kind of um I think you kind of develop the kind of special relationship with the people you climb with because with sometimes in other sports you're like competing against other people,
Yeah.
but when you're climbing, all you're trying to do is just climb up a rock.
Yeah.
And usually someone else is there who's trying to help you do that. So
Yeah.
and they're trying to make sure that you stay safe because it can be dangerous. So you develop this kind of really kind of special connection with the people you climb in because you're all trying to support each other and you're all trying to make sure everyone stays alive and doesn't get hurt and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Stay
uh,
alive, please. That would be great.
I'm working on it. Still here.
Yeah. Um, I have more questions, but I feel like we're like done on time, so I definitely like to have you
Yeah.
back on here if
I would love to come back. Thank you for having
awesome.
me, Maria.
All
Yeah.
right, awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Soak It Up. I'm Maria Zepeda. This is Jor-el Vaasborg. Yep, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, like and share this video, and check out Jor-el's Instagram.
Thanks,
All
Maria.
right.
Have a wonderful day, guys.
Yep. Bye, guys.